The story begins from where we left off, with Yugi collecting all 7 Millennium items and the 3 Egyptian god cards. Having already saved the world, Atem seeks to pass on to the afterlife, but to do so, Yugi must duel him and win in the right of the duel. After winning a grueling battle, Atem's spirit is finally free, but not before he reminds Yugi that he is strong even without him. Back to the present, Kaiba Corp has excavated the Shrine of the Underworld where Yugi and Atem had their final duel. Kaiba's bodyguard shows the workers a picture of the Millennium Puzzle worn by Yugimoto so they'd know what to look for. He then calls and informs Kaiba that they are behind schedule. As he exits the shrine, a helicopter flies past him carrying Mokuba, Kaiba, who will supervise the excavation team. After months of excavating the area, Mokuba informs his older brother Kaiba that they have finally found the Millennium Puzzle pieces. Several months have passed since the Pharaoh's departure. Yugi and his friends Joey Wheeler, Taya Gardner, Tristan Taylor, and Bakura Ryu are preparing to graduate from Domino High School and discuss their plans. Taya has just been accepted to study abroad to become a professional dancer. Tristan will work with his father at the factory, while Joey plans to become a professional duelist. Yugi claims he plans to continue working at his grandfather's game shop, but also intends to create his own games. When Yugi and his friends return to class, they spot a new student. They think they remember him, but struggle to think of his name before Tristan finally says it is Aigami. After school, Yugi is walking home with Taya and Joey, who notice Scud and his gang are harassing Aigami, so they quickly intervene. Scud and the others left, but not before threatening Aigami to show up at a construction site later. That night, Aigami did show up as was told, but instead of being tortured by the group, he pulled out the quantum cube, and a group of children with glowing eyes quickly surrounded them. Aigami intends to rid the world of all evil, starting with their gang, which they quickly disintegrate as they are brought to a different dimension from which they can never return. Yugi and his friends later meet at Devlin Cafe, where Yugi receives worrying news that Scud and his gang have gone missing. Taya and Duke confirm it is only one of many recent cases of people mysteriously disappearing worldwide. Kaiba suddenly appears on the TV screens and unveils his newest duel disc, where he will demonstrate in an exhibition duel at Kaiba Land. Aigami also shows up at the mall and watches over Yugi and his friends when Mani shows up to confront him. He tries to talk him out of taking revenge, explaining that it's not what their mentor would have wanted. Aigami reflects on his time in the Prana Realm, a paradise on a plateau just above the clouds. There were 7 pillars on it, each representing a Millennium item. Mani later informs Aigami that Kaiba has found the Millennium Puzzle and is on his way to secure it. Kaiba finally arrives at the Shrine of the Underworld, where Mokuba and Roland patiently await his arrival. Mokuba wonders how he plans to complete the puzzle when it takes Yugi 8 years. Kaiba responded that Yugi's a child compared to a genius like him. While waiting for the security system to unlock, Kaiba calls out to Aigami using his real name, Diva, who is hiding in the crowd. One of the bodyguards sneaks up on Diva with a gun, but he quickly pulls out his quantum cube and teleports him to the other dimension with his powers. Mokuba suspects that Diva must be responsible for the recent string of disappearances worldwide, to which he admitted. Diva tries to use its powers on Kaiba, but he pulls out his new duel disc, which counters the effects of his cube. When he can't get rid of Kaiba, Diva challenges him to a duel, which Kaiba quickly accepts. Before they get started, Diva explains that they will be dimensional dueling. When summoning, the player can determine how many attack and defense points a monster has by infusing it with the user's spiritual energy, but he can't exceed the monster's original point total. Diva explains that should a monster get destroyed, the player will get damage equal to its attack points. Although Kaiba has stronger monster cards than him, Diva's monsters have tricky card effects, that and the surprising trap cards he uses. Kaiba is quickly overwhelmed, and when he's about to be bested, he finds the resolve never to lose until he defeats Atem. He fights back by summoning Obelisk, the Tormentor. Diva wonders how he got it, as this was one of the Pharaoh's strongest cards. As their battle almost comes to a close, the duel is interrupted when the computer finishes scanning the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle, to which Mokuba quickly hooks the case to a helicopter and flies away. Diva teleports to Mokuba and tries to use his powers to reach through the glass, but Mokuba knocks him off. Although he escaped with the Millennium Puzzle, Diva managed to swipe 2 of its pieces, so they couldn't complete it later. Kaiba later retrieves the case and enters an elevator that takes him to a space station. He quickly puts the puzzle pieces on a machine using a 3-dimensional multi-grid to analyze each piece and simulate various compositional patterns to assemble the Millennium Puzzle. Kaiba gets furious when he realizes that Diva took a few pieces of the puzzle, rendering it incomplete. After their duel, Mani looks into the pit where the puzzle was found and finds it glowing. When he checked closer, he found the ominous Millennium Ring that Bakura used to have. Diva later meets with Sira, to which he entrusts her with a piece of the Millennium Puzzle. With Kaiba getting close to completing the puzzle, Diva claims he must get rid of the Pharaoh's host body, Yugimoto. He fears that if the Pharaoh returns, they will lose the powers of the prana. Sira tries to reason with him, telling him he is blinded by hate and advises him to stop, or it will destroy him. Meanwhile, Yugi and his friends go bowling after their graduation rehearsal, and Aigami joins their group. Joey was showing off his Red Eyes Black Dragon card at the fast food restaurant. Aigami claims he's terrible at dueling, so the group quickly suggests he learn from Yugi, as he's the best duelist, and even praises Yugi for beating the famous Seto Kaiba. Yugi suggests they have a duel tournament at his house later in the evening, to which everyone agrees. On their way to Yugi's, Bakura talked about how he and his father lived in Egypt before settling in Domino City. Bakura refused to tell them more about it as it was a bad memory he wanted to forget. Still, Aigami forced him to tell otherwise when he pulled out his quantum cube. Joey tries to help Bakura, but Aigami sends him to another dimension where he finds himself on the street with other people seemingly walking past him. Aigami explains that Joey's memories create his world, and that when he forgets something, it will quickly disappear until nothing is left of him. Aigami turns his attention to Bakura, who falls on his knees trying to forget the past. Still, Aigami claims it doesn't matter, as he was there when it happened. Back then, Bakura's father was obsessed with the Millennium Ring. When he decided to go to Egypt, young Bakura stowed away on the ship, worried about what might happen to him. Aigami recalls when Shadi Shin was with children at the Shrine of the Underworld. Shadi explained to the children that when all 7 Millennium items are gathered, the door to the afterlife will open and the Pharaoh's soul will finally be able to move on. He reminds them that when the Pharaoh should leave this world, they will have the limitless powers of the prana, but should he return for whatever reason, those powers will be recanted. Out of nowhere, Bakura's father arrives excited to find the Millennium Ring finally. He tried to buy it from him, but Shadi explained that it was not for sale and that he was free to pick it up to be tested if he was worthy of it. When he puts it on, he's quickly thrown across the room, deeming him unworthy of the ring. Bakura runs to his father and picks the ring up for him when a purple light shines bright and the Millennium Ring possesses Bakura. Shadi tried to stop him, but he was thrown against a pillar and attacked the children. Shadi entrusted the quantum cube to Aigami just before dying. Out of nowhere, Mani shows up possessed by the Millennium Ring. He tries to kill Bakura, but he later regained control of himself. He then quickly throws Bakura to one side. At the same time, he and Aigami are teleported to another dimension where Mani dies and disappears, leaving behind the Millennium Ring. Meanwhile, Yugi's been carefully preparing his deck while waiting for his friends to arrive when Sarah shows up. Sarah explains that she knows of the Pharaoh from her master, Shadi Shin, who bestowed upon children like her the power of prana. It is a power that is so strong that it can remake the world and turn it into something beautiful. She worries that if such a power is misused, it could destroy the world. Sarah claims that destiny has led her to him, so she shall entrust him with her future. With that said, Yugi later finds a piece of the Millennium Puzzle in the box that Diva entrusted to her. Out of nowhere, Tristan shows up and tells him that something has happened to Joey and Bakura. Inside a dissolving dimension, Joey falls, and his body starts to fade away from the rest of the world when a flash of light shines bright. Joey briefly sees Atem and saves him from disappearing. He then finds himself back in the real world where Yugi, Tristan, and Taya are relieved to find him. While Aigami observes Yugi and his friends on the roof of a building, he is suddenly abducted, blindfolded, and brought before Kaiba. who demands he return the puzzle pieces he took. When he refuses, he's brought back to Kaiba Land, where Kaiba has other plans. As the others continue their search for Bakura, Kaiba appears before Yugi. He demands Yugi participate in an exhibition duel at Kaiba Land, who then shows him an incomplete Millennium Puzzle. Suggesting that he knows that Yugi has the missing piece, he explains that he plans on dueling Atem, and that Yugi alone is of little interest to him. Sarah appears before Yugi again and begs him to help save her brother, who is revealed to be Aigami. While in captivity, Aigami dreams of himself and Sarah when they were thirsty and begging in Egypt. They used to live with an abusive man who forced children to steal and beg for him. When they had nothing to show, the man refused to feed them. Out of nowhere, Shadi shows up, and upon realizing that the man has been up to no good, he uses his powers to make him disappear. He then saves the children, who explain that those with the most wretched lives deserve the most beautiful rewards. He then takes them into his wing and teleports them to the Prana Realm, where they will continue to study under him. The day of the tournament has finally arrived, and Kaiba Corp has gathered all over Domino to witness the big unveiling of his newest duel disc. He explains that he has handpicked 2 of the best duelists in the world to hold a piece of the Millennium Puzzle that he needs to complete. Yugi speaks up and demands that he be the one to duel Aigami to save his friend Bakura. When Kaiba realizes he wouldn't change his mind, he agrees to the duel. Hence, the duel between Aigami and Yugi begins. Aigami claims that they will be dimension dueling like Kaiba did with him. As expected, Aigami keeps using his tricky monster cards that continue to evolve. When everyone thought Yugi would lose, he pulls a miracle. He turns the game around with a great play that forces Aigami's monsters to attack him. Still, instead of receiving damage, it returns it to him until he runs out of life points. With that, it ends with Yugi's victory, resulting in Bakura's return. Kaiba calls out Yugi, who claims his goal is to bring back Atem, with whom he has unfinished business. Yugi tries to explain that Atem is already gone, but Kaiba refuses to listen to him, so he completes the Millennium Puzzle to prove that nothing happens should he even finish it. Regardless, Kaiba challenges Yugi to a duel where he brazenly shows the overwhelming power of his deck. Although it seems hopeless, Yugi turns it around when he successfully utilizes his cards. Kaiba even acknowledges his masterful strategy. Their duel is interrupted when a Dark Aigami shows up after the Millennium Ring possesses him after his defeat against Yugi. The entire stadium is covered in darkness as Dark Aigami pulls everyone into a shadow game. So, Kaiba and Yugi join forces against him. Aigami overpowers them with his insane monster cards, and Kaiba is even forced to sacrifice himself to protect Yugi. Yugi refuses to give up despite the wavering odds. Toward the end, his body reaches its limit, and he finally finds himself incapable of drawing his next card. A beam of golden light covers the stage, and Atem shows up. He defeats Dark Aigami and saves everyone, while Yugi and Atem come face to face yet again. After a moment of silence, he and the Millennium Puzzle disappear. Aigami wakes up in the Prana Realm, where Mani, who had miraculously resurrected, informs him that they have forever lost their powers since the Pharaoh returned. Aigami believes it was for the best and parts with Mani in Egypt on good terms. Yugi and his friends finally graduate from high school and see Taya off at the airport as she goes off to pursue her lifelong dream of becoming a professional dancer. Meanwhile, Kaiba enters a pod where Mokuba advises him against it, as the machine is yet to be thoroughly tested. Despite Mokuba begging him otherwise, Kaiba tells him he's in charge while he is gone. He then activates the quantum cube to transport his consciousness to the afterlife. Kaiba later appears in a desert, presumably having traveled to the afterlife, where he walks into the throne room where Atem sits. Kaiba quickly activates his duel disc and challenges Atem, which he graciously accepts with a smile. The end. Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap that bell to be notified about our latest videos. We'll see you next time.